Hello there and welcome to another edition of Four Wheels Good. Now the public are not allowed into the Vauxhall Heritage Centre in Luton, so we've had a good old mosey round for you and the report is later. Also, John Stanley will have a surprise Ferrari in this week's episode in his mini-series featuring the great Italian Mark. And Nicky Fox and I will be putting two huge estates head to head. But first, we all get attached to our cars, some more than others. I went to Chester to investigate an extraordinary story of love and devotion towards a humble Ford Anglia. It's the end of the line for 337 YFM, because today this much-loved 1962 Ford Anglia, resplendent in her Caribbean turquoise and ermine white, makes her final journey to a better place. For 32 years she's been a faithful servant to a loving family, but frankly, she's past it.
It's going to be strange when you look through the window and not see it there anymore, because, you know, we always keep our eye on it and look through the window, car's there.
It's been a very, very good servant to us, and it's been part of the family for 32 years. We took a photograph of it all the time. Wherever we went, we used to stop, we'd go to Calendar, we'd take a photograph of it. So we'd know, those were our memories. My dad bought it for me as a present. He gave his savings of £425 for that car.
The Anglia.
Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I like that one.
I notice they haven't got any two-tone ones. They're all one colour.
Before setting off on the fateful journey, the Hughes took a final nostalgic look at Ford's original launch film for the Anglia.
Remember your dad, when he bought that car, he said, look, we've got a deluxe. That's right, we never used to moan at putting petrol in, did we?
At £1.09 a gallon.
I think I remember once you having a good moan when it went to 4 and 6. Oh, and that wouldn't be allowed, definitely wouldn't be allowed.
Sitting on the bonnet in the roof.
Especially with the balls.
But now the time had arrived for their beloved Anglia to take her final journey. Do you find people stare at you when you drive?
Oh, yes, very much so.
Oh, yes, we're like royalty.
Oh, yes, they stare at us, all right. Wherever we go, like comments this morning, a chap pulled up in his car and said, "Why, you look after that?" And I said, well, I have to, because it's part of me. To lose it after 32 years is it's a big wrench for me.
So you really do regard it as allowing her to rest in peace?
That's right, yes, very much so. She's old now, and
She's had a good life.
She's had a very good life, but she's old now, and she wants a rest, because she's been a working car. She's worked every day of her life, but it's going to her best home, because I never wanted it to go to a scrapyard, because I couldn't bear that, because it's been such a good friend to us.
The Hughes Anglia will be looked after by James Peacock. He started the Mouldsworth Motor Museum in response to friends' requests to take care of their ageing cars.
We look after cars for people for a variety of reasons. Mouldsworth's the sort of place where you can leave a car and be sure it's going to be coveted, if you like, you know.
Coveted indeed. Just look at this classic Lotus built in 1950 by Colin Chapman himself.
A lot of the ideas that he had that went into Formula One, which you know, people appreciate now and use, are in that car.
Is the Lotus 3 yours?
No, it's a friend of mine who's sadly fallen on hard times, and he was very worried about where it was stored, and we don't charge him anything for it. We just said, well, look, you know, stop worrying, bring it here.
All these cars have stories that reflect the love and loyalty of their owners. This is a 1930 Morris with under 4,500 miles on the clock. It really was used only to go to church on Sundays, and it stands cheek by jowl with a sinful Ferrari Dino. But this is a themed collection. The common bond is affection.
And Mr. Hughes from Chester with this marvellous little Anglia, you know, that's a car that he didn't want to sell or dispose of. So, you know, what better than to let other people enjoy it? I think he's enjoyed it, you know.
So 337 YFM is now officially a museum piece. James, you do the honours, please. And Jack and Margaret, it's a sad day, but it's not farewell, it's au revoir, isn't it?
It is.
It is,
I'm very, very sad to see it go.
I've got a brand new Ford outside. Can I give you a lift home?
No, I think I'll take this one.
You can't.
Oh, good God.
Well, that really was a sad moment, but they know their little baby is being well cared for at the Mouldsworth Motor Museum. Now, while we're into this classic mode, here's a little quiz for you. How many out of the production Vauxhall models can you reel off? I think you'll find they mostly started with the letter V, a tradition brought back with the Vectra. And the car that preceded it would have sounded a bit silly though, wouldn't it, as the Vauxhall Vavalier.
Now, every car manufacturer has their own unique history, and here at Vauxhall in Luton, it's no exception. This is the Vauxhall Heritage Centre, where they've collected over the years a great selection of cars going right the way back to the very first Vauxhall built in 1903, which we're going to take a look at in a minute. This is Vauxhall's very first car built in 1903, and with me, Bernard Ridgely, who's in charge of the Vauxhall Heritage Centre. Bernard, what was the thinking behind Vauxhall introducing this car back in 1903?
Well, the horseless carriage came on the scene, and obviously the managers at the time thought this was a good investment, and this is an example of our first model, which ran for 2 years, single cylinder. And then we went on to a 3-cylinder in 1905, which we've now started to make again with a new Corsa 3-cylinder.
So this is about 5 horsepower, do about 30 miles an hour top speed?
Yeah, that's about it, yeah.
And what would this have cost back in 1903?
£142, this 4-seater, which was a lot of money then, if you think about it, you know.
What are the main features of the car?
Well, this has got it's a single cylinder, mechanical exhaust valve, atmospheric inlet valve, 2-speed epicyclic gears, no front wheel brakes, tiller steering, which thank goodness went a long while ago. We only built it with a tiller for about 18 months, and then we fitted a steering wheel. But yeah, it's quite a motor car.
Well, let's move on, take a look at one or two other cars here in the museum. Now, Bernard, there was a fairly radical change at the end of the 40s into the start of the 50s when the old wing-shaped cars went out and beautiful cars like this were introduced by Vauxhall. These two particularly very American influences. Why did you think they went down that particular route?
Well, I think it was a sign of the times, because a lot of the designs here were approved by the States, but it was going that way. You know, we're trying to get away with the pre-war image and to bring into a new image of the 50s, you know. And we had just had the Festival of Britain in 1951, and this was sort of the sign of the times, you know.
What are the main features on this car from the 1953 to the ones we looked at previously from the late 20s? I mean, how had things progressed?
Well, this has got a short-stroke engine in it, where all the others were long-stroke engines. So the engine's actually revved higher revs than than the older cars. But it had got hydraulic brakes as well, which we had in the 30s, you see. But other than that, it, as you can see, it's got a side-opening bonnet, which we didn't run for too long because people forgot to lock them, and they used to blow over the top. But it was very handy for the mechanic because he could undo either side and take the whole bonnet off all in one go.
What about things like this screen just above the windscreen? What was the thinking behind that?
Well, probably to keep the sun out, but it just had got sun visors. But it's a very sought-after extra. You just go for hen's teeth, ain't it? You know, it's incredible. You don't see very many cars with them on at all.
And then we progressed on to this car from 1959, I think it was.
Yes, that's the PA model. That came in after the E-Type, and it's got more of a American there's a bit of German influence. If you look at some of the old Opels, they had a similar body shape to that. But that's a 6-cylinder, and they only did that model in 6. They didn't do it in a 4. The black one, the E-Type, they did it in 6 and 4 cylinder.
Now, Bernard, this is a very familiar car, the Vauxhall Viva, introduced in 1964. I think at one stage we've probably all had one of these Vauxhall Vivas. I remember my parents had one. The thinking behind the Viva's introduction was to try and relate to the Mini at the time, I think.
That's correct, yes. We hadn't got a small car at the time, and we brought this one out just after the Mini, and it was very successful. And it went on to 2 other models afterwards.
And they sold tremendously well.
Well, we started building this particular model in Luton, and then we opened our plant at Ellesmere Port, and they started making them as well.
So we've had a chance to view here at the Heritage Centre in Luton cars right the way through from the very first Vauxhall built in 1903, right the way through to the 1980s, and perhaps the car that was the saving grace for the Luton plant, the Vauxhall Cavalier, which we all know and love. It's been a very interesting tour, a chance to see some beautiful old cars which Vauxhall have very carefully restored right the way back from the very first car built in 1903.
A fascinating heritage centre, but not generally open to the public. But hey, we can pull so many strings here, we should have Jerry Anderson as our patron. After the break, we'll see how John Stanley managed to wrangle £250,000 worth of a rare Ferrari onto a disused airstrip just to show you, and I hope you're grateful. Hello there, and in a packed part 2, we find out what to look for in a big estate. And John Wright will be delving under the bonnet again in Inside Motors. But first, John Stanley's got a big surprise for you. The first letter is an F and the last is an I, but the actual model should have true Ferrari fans salivating over their screens.
This badge is probably the most famous in the whole of the automotive industry. It was originally the lucky mascot and logo of a First World War fighter pilot, and it's been worn with pride on racing cars and road cars and people's clothing ever since. Ferrari merchandising is a huge business. Anyone who has been to a race circuit will tell you how many they can see in the audiences. They are extraordinarily successful. They are in fact the 3rd most successful brand behind Rolex and Coke for recognition. So the Ferrari badge is the icon. It is what we all dream of. It is what on everybody's posters on their walls. And in this truck, there is something unbelievably special. You can hear it, and in a minute, we will be driving it. This is probably the most famous name in Ferrari's history. It's a Testarossa. The word means redhead, and all the Testarossa engines have scarlet rocker covers. It was launched in 1956 as a 2-litre called the 500 TR, and then had a 4-cylinder engine. A year later, they combined the 290 chassis and this bodywork with the 250 GT V12 power plant. That became the 250 Testarossa. Even in the early days, when it was winning races, people knew it was a winner. And indeed, in the World Championship in 58, in 60, and in 61, it won. This particular example is in fact a beautifully hand-built replica from DK Engineering. They were founded in 1977 by David and Kate Cotterham, the D and the K, to satisfy a passion that he had for classic cars, and in particular the XK Jaguar race cars. Their skills and attention to detail, first with Jaguars and then with the more demanding Ferraris, built them up an extraordinary reputation, and they moved over to restoration and rebuilds of some of the finest race and road Ferraris in the land. Rich clients' desire for older exotic cars, but with good reliability, led DK to build just 8 perfect Testarossas. They're all based on the one original Ferrari prototype, which was chassis number 0666. This one was built for a secret European client and used the correct V12 Type 128F engine and the 250 GT4 gearbox. It has disc brakes, it has the tubular chassis, it has triple carbs, it has a stunningly beautiful hand-welded body. It was originally, in fact, in white, and the last owner decided to make it a classic Ferrari red. The donor car was in fact a 1960 Ferrari 250 GTE, which was a 2+2 body with a V12 3-litre engine. It had independent front suspension and a live rear axle. Ferrari needed money to help develop their race cars, and with Pininfarina they in secret developed this 2+2 in the knowledge that it would have a wide market and therefore a decent income for them. They were incredibly successful in keeping it secret and then in their PR, because for the 1960 Le Mans they managed to unveil the car when it was used as the race director's car at the circuit. So everybody saw it. And just to rub it in, 7 of the first 8 places in that Le Mans race were held by Ferrari. The GTE helped double production over the next 3 years and was even used by the great Enzo as personal transport. So when it comes to a suitable donor car for such a beautiful Testarossa, it seemed an ideal end for a tired example. Under here, there is just a spectacular sight. Look. Isn't that brilliant? Inside, it's everything you'd expect. It's simple, it's stark, it's light. You can see the space frame chassis. It's very saving on weight, but is strong. You can see the exhaust system through the bottom of the floor, which is everything again you would expect of a period car. Getting in, a little tricky, but once there. The transmission feels strange. It's very high. It's almost like a present-day touring car. The gate is everything classical. It is the famous, it's very beguiling this. It's a very famous gate, but it threatens you because you don't have a canopy over it, and therefore you spend your time hunting and praying you're going to get it in. Come on, let's try it. I'll get the hair back and we'll have some fun. The start button is kind of neat. You turn it on and you press the key. You can really understand why Ferrari generates just so much passion. It's just a wonderful love affair. Can you imagine a better job than this?
Over £250,000 worth of motor. Still, if there's one man to trust with a car like that, it's John Stanley. His annual Classic Car Yearbook will be out soon, and I can't wait to see this year's selection in the Stanley Classic 100. And in some months to come, John will have his own series featuring great classics.
Welcome once again to Inside Motors. If you think servicing means garages and big bills, then think again. Hi Frank, so you've got the bits for the Polo?
Hi John, yeah, got them out ready. I've got your oil filter, air filter, plugs, ignition bits. You've got your distributor cap and rotor arm, all ready to go.
Great stuff. How about some oil?
Oh yeah, there we go, there's the oil.
Great stuff. There we are, see, it's as easy as that. The servicing of modern cars is relatively easy. In fact, as cars have got more complex, the servicing requirements have got more simple. Today we're going to service this Volkswagen Polo. No magic formula, all the details are held in the book. What we're going to do today is the inspection service, and we're going to add to it a lubrication service as well. For the lubrication service, all you need is the oil filter and the can of oil, and for the inspection service we need to replace the spark plugs and the air filter. And then everything else that we do is inspect this, check that, check leaks here and check tensions. Right, we've jacked the car up, loosened the wheel nuts. Now we're going to drain the oil out of the sump and get it changed. Right, this is the sump drain nut here. I'll just get a 90mm spanner on it, take that off, loosen it. There we go. And just let the last few dregs go. And pop the nut back in again. Re-tighten it up. I always like to tighten them up immediately I've done the job. Means you don't forget. And that's it. Right, now we're under here. I think we'll just change the oil filter as well, which is this device immediately above. You can actually get at it from the top of the car as well, but seeing as we're down here, we might as well just do it. Put the oil filter wrench around the filter and tighten it up until it loosens off. There we are. Not really a huge problem. Take that off just to catch the drips of oil. Right, here's the new oil filter that we got from BMS. Now before you fit it, two important points. One, pre-fill a little bit of oil in the filter. Just let it go over the top and lubricate the seal.
Oh, it's buzzing that, John. Thanks very much. More from our wily workmen next week, along with more exclusive motoring stories from the team here at Four Wheels Good. See you then.